Hi guys, we are in week 7, so we're starting a new unit this week. We're going to be writing a short story at the end of this unit. So you'll notice on the announcements and assignments that are posted in Blackboard, for 2.1 it says previewing the unit. You're going to go to the blog for this and you're going to answer a few questions just to get you thinking about the short story that you're going to be writing about, all right? So I've got some questions listed here. I want you to write 3 sentences in the blog, and I also want you to make a quality response to somebody else in at least 1 sentence, not just I agree or I disagree. But some of the questions it has here is what makes a good story? What are some elements of style analysis? So what are some things you do to like analyze a story? What are some literary elements you do and don't feel comfortable with? So similes, metaphors, hyperbole, irony. Which ones do you know? Which ones could you write on your own? And then what are you going to need to be successful to write your own short story? So this is just to get you thinking about the end goal here. We're going to all be writing a story, and I want you to kind of brainstorm some of that stuff in the blog. For assignment 2.2, you'll see in the announcements, I've got this little chart. I know it's kind of maybe hard to see here, but this is in your announcements, and it's probably backwards for you guys too, sorry. But the point is, every story kind of goes through this graph. So in every story you'll have the background. This is just where the setting is introduced, the characters are introduced, and then you have an inciting incident. It's not in this, but right here where it starts to bend, there's usually an initial conflict. So there's something that a character encounters that kind of starts the rising action or starts the course of the story. That's the rising action. This is just all the stuff that happens after the initial conflict is introduced, where the character's struggling with that conflict, trying to overcome it, and that sort of thing. Then you've got your climax. A lot of people say this is the most exciting part of the story. It's just when the problem reaches its like max point. Sometimes it's where the main conflict is resolved and it's no longer a conflict. You figure out the end of the conflict there. Then down here, this is the following action. This is where the characters are kind of solving the main problems, getting over the main problems, and then there's the resolution, which is just how things all wrap up, like they all lived happily ever after. That's the resolution of the story, all right? Your story is gonna follow this format, so keep this in mind. That's why I put it in here. It's also on your 2.2 activity in the Springboard documents, but I kind of like this one better. So that's why I put that here. So your story will follow this format, and then you'll see in the announcements there's also other things that you need to make a story, right? You need characters, so you're going to need major characters like your protagonist, who's your main character, and your antagonist. That's the person or the thing that causes problems for your main character. You also have other minor characters. You need to have a theme. This is always my big important thing in all stories, because all stories have a theme. They have a lesson that we can learn, that we can apply to our own lives. So think about what lesson you want your story to teach people. What do you want people to get out of it? And then there's also literary elements. So irony, imagery, foreshadowing, flashbacks, similes, metaphors, all of that stuff. I created a big list there, onomatopoeia, flashback. There's tons of literary elements. And I also included a YouTube link that talks about some literary elements. And it kind of shows you like in movies how they've played out and stuff like that. I know you guys sometimes get sick of seeing me, so I put a YouTube link for somebody else who's going to talk to you about literary elements. Look at that, because you guys are going to need to use literary elements in your story. So you need to know what they are, and you need to know how to incorporate them into a story. So you don't have to use them all. I just want you guys to be able to include a couple in your story. All right. So what you actually need to do for assignment 2.2 is here in the announcements. You'll see it under my blue highlighted thing there. Number 1 says, think about a character for your story. So think about who you want your character, your main character to be, your protagonist. And then also create a couple characteristics. Is this person going to be shy? Are they going to be volatile or quick to anger? What are they going to be like? So come up with a couple characteristics for them. And then number 2, it says to think about the conflict. So you're going to write down your character's name, you're going to write down their characteristics. Come up with the conflict that your character is going to encounter. Could be an external conflict, like maybe something outside, like a person is a problem for them. That's an external conflict. Maybe they have an internal conflict. So maybe they're struggling with like some change that they've had to go through, or struggling with growing up, like a coming of age kind of story. So you can have an external conflict, maybe they have a problem with another person, or an internal conflict where they have a problem with something going on in themselves. So that's just getting your story set up. So you're going to do number 1 and number 2 in Springboard Activity 2.2. All right? Then in Springboard Activity 2.3, there are some exercises for point of view. So all stories are written in a certain point of view. You can have first person point of view where the person telling you the story is a character in the story. So you see a lot of I's, I did this, I was thinking that. You get that person's thoughts. Then there's third person point of view. And there's 2 different types of third person point of view. There's third person limited, where the author is telling us the story about the character. So the narrator is somebody who's not in the story. It's just the author. And maybe if they're just giving us one character's thoughts, that's third person limited point of view. Maybe they're giving us multiple characters' thoughts. That's third person omniscient point of view. So I've got some examples here so you guys can see kind of the different effects, because depending on how you want your story to go, you're going to pick a different point of view. So first person point of view, here's an example. I opened the briefcase and couldn't believe what I saw. Jacob ran after me. I ran to the door full of panic. I had never been so scared. So see how there's eyes, we get just her thoughts. Then there's third person limited. So here the narrator's telling us the story. Susie opened the briefcase and couldn't believe what she saw. Jacob ran after her. She ran to the door full of panic. She had never been so scared. So see how the author is saying she, and we get just her thoughts. So that's third person limited. Now for third person omniscient, it's going to change a tad. Susie opened the briefcase and couldn't believe what she saw. Jacob ran after her. He knew he couldn't let her escape. She ran to the door full of panic. She had never been so scared. I didn't mean for that to get so scary, but that's where it went, I guess. So those are some examples of the different points of view and the different effect it has. It's the same scenario in all of those, but a different point of view. So you guys are going to pick your point of view for your own story. So think about that. For Springboard Activity 2.3 though, here there are 3 examples of just like excerpts from a story. You guys are going to tell me what point of view each of those are. So for 1, 2, and 3, the first one says, I ran into my ex-girlfriend Lisa. I did not want to see her again. She always wants to get back with me and I just want to move on. You tell me what point of view that is. All right. And then do the same for number 2 and 3. So then you have a writing prompt. All right. So you'll see the writing prompt here. This is actually the start of your own story. Okay. So for the writing prompt, you are going to pick a central conflict that's going to drive the events in your story. You're going to pick an internal or an external conflict for your character to go through. You're going to make sure you have a consistent point of view. So don't start in first person and then shift to like third person. Don't do that. Stick with the same one. And then you're going to have an introduction of the main character where you tell me what they look like, how they act, that sort of thing. So this is the start of your story. So you guys are going to have to write a story for your embedded assessment in a couple weeks. This is the start of it. So you're kind of getting a head start on your embedded assessment. You're going to write 2 or 3 paragraphs, and you're just going to write this part, the exposition here, and maybe the inciting incident where you introduce the conflict. It's going to be a couple paragraphs, and I've got them kind of outlined here because I know writing stories is not something we do every day. So in your first paragraph, this is your exposition. Introduce your character, tell me what they look like, how they act, what they do. Talk about the setting. You could use imagery here. Imagery is a great literary element to use. Imagery is where you're really descriptive, all right? In the second paragraph, start to introduce your inciting incident. That's where you're going to introduce your conflict. So start to introduce that. This is the conflict that's going to be the primary problem throughout the entire story till the climax. Remember to use some literary elements. So try to stick in a simile, try to stick in a metaphor, maybe some onomatopoeia or something like that, because it's just fun to say. And I don't expect you guys to be the most amazing story writers in the world. I know this is not the norm, but I think we can do better than like the stories we wrote in elementary school, right? So think about that. As always, I'm here to help, so make sure you guys reach out to me if you need some help with this or if you're stuck on anything. I'm here for you, all right? Take care, and I look forward to seeing all those assignments come in.